Hi guys, this is Basket here with the guild Red Dawn on Elshadon server EU. Um, Today we'll be talking about the Ret Paladin, a very mystical class if some people. For some people, you don't see a lot of Ret Paladins out nowadays. It's mainly because people just can't get their heads around the rotation, but after this video you should maybe consider playing a Ret Paladin, as the rotation isn't as hard as people make it to be. Talents are pretty much straightforward now in Mr. Pandaria. The first tier is mainly speed effects to your character. I like the speed of light because I can control it more over Pursuit of Justice and Long Arm of the Law. Judgment we use all the time, but what good is that if you're running from one spot to the other and there's nothing to hit? At the tier 2 you've got your stuns and your slows. Burden of Guilt is more for PvP. It may have some usage in PvE raids, but for the most part it's either Repentance or Fist of Justice, which can be swapped in between depending on your need. 45 is more personal utility. As a Ret Paladin you won't be healing that much, so you don't really need Eternal Flame. This is why we have healers in raids. You could go for selfless healer if you find that the healers are struggling somewhat, but again it reduces the mana cost of Flash of Light, which we really won't be using. I've gone for Sacred Shield because I just love this little spell. It's just an absorb. It helps out the healers every now and then. Can be casted yourself or any other raid member. It's great for using on tanks. Same for tier number 4. I've gone with Clemency for the double freedom and or the double sacrifice or salvation. I don't use Hand of Protection because, well, I can't do shit if I use it. You could use Unbreakable Spirit, but it's not really what it's all cracked up to be. Again, this is mostly preference. I prefer Clemency, some people prefer Hand of Purity. Most tanks would go for Hand of Purity because of the harmful periodic effects of 70% for 6 seconds. That's great for tanks. Again, personal preference. On the tier 5, this is for the most DPS. You'll be wanting to go for Sacrificed Wrath. As Ret, it means that your cooldown of your Hammer of Wrath, which is our kill shot, if you will, the cooldown of that is reduced by 50%. So what that basically means is that you can spam Hammer of Wrath pretty much consistently between using Hammer of Wrath and Inquisition and or Templar's Verdict. Holy Avenger is the new Zeal tree. I used to use this for a while because I couldn't quite get the hang of using Sanctified Wrath, but doing some reading up on the Ret Paladin class, I decided to go for the Sanctified Wrath. I haven't used Divine Purpose, but again, this is back in the day in Kata in Wrath. You remember you used to get Templar's Verdict procs. You don't get them now because you may not be speccing into Divine Purpose. The last tier, which is the new to Mr. Pandaria spells, which can be used for damage and or healing. Holy Prism is more a healing spell. It's a direct heal. It can also be used for damage, but this heals as well. For the longer fights, where we can have this up on a target for more than 10 seconds, then Execution of Sentence is the better choice. Light's Hammer is more for the AoE. For Glyphs, you can really play around with this. I prefer Mass Exorcism because as Ret Paladins we don't have a great deal of AoE. This basically just adds a bit of AoE, 25% damage of the main exorcism to all the targets within 8 seconds. Why not? Glyph of Divine Storm is more survivability. Every time I use it in AoE situations I get healed for 5% of my maximum health. Again, you could probably play around with this. You could probably go for Avenging Wrath, which would probably do the same thing except it heals you. You could go Divine Protection if you were taking too much damage, etc, etc. Templar's Verdict, you take 10% less damage for 6 seconds after dealing damage with your Templar's Verdict. You're using Templar's Verdict a lot. It's your main hardest hitting spell that you have. So the uptime on this is pretty high compared to other stuff. When it comes to stats, our main stat is of course strength. Then we want our hit to sit 7.5%, then our expertise to 7.5%, then it's to haste, mastery, and then crit. In kata it was the other way around, it was mastery, then haste, then crit. Being the fact that our mastery increases our holy damage for all our holy spells, which is Crusader Strike, Templar's Verdict, Exorcism, I believe, and Divine Storm. Unfortunately, haste has now become a better choice for Rep Paladins and a lot of other classes alike, like DKs and Warriors. The rotation is pretty simple. The way a Rep Paladin works is to get as much holy power in as little time as possible, because the way you can do that is you can then refresh your Inquisition rather. This gives us a holy damage buff for 10 seconds per holy power charge. So you want to use this with 3 holy power, which will give you a half a minute uptime. Try not to let this fall off, as you'll be losing 30% of your damage. If you already have Inquisition up, then you'll want to be using it on Templar's Verdict and single target, as this is our main spell. AoE situations, you can, if it's more than 4 or more targets, you'll want to switch to Divine Storm. So the main rotation would be, as you start, Crusader Strike, Judgment, Exorcism, that's 3 holy power points, I can use Inquisition. Crusader Strike, Judgment, I've got nothing to use, so I'm going to use Stay of Execution Sentence. Crusader Strike, Templar's Verdict, and you continue so on and so forth. When you're single target, you want to be using Seal of Truth, as that gives us the best damage output. For AoE, the rotation is very similar, however you use Seal of the Righteous. Up to 4 targets, you just continue using your single target rotation. In the AoE, you just keep doing Crusader Strike, Judgment, Exorcism, get your Inquisition up, and then you switch to Hammer of the Righteous, that's their AoE, Judgment, Exorcism, Divine Storm, Hammer of the Righteous, Judgment, Divine Storm, 3 holy power points, Hammer of the Righteous, Judgment, this is where we need haste, Hammer of the Righteous, Divine Storm, and so forth and so forth. I did mention Hammer of Wrath a few moments back, which is basically our kill shots, if you will. Hunters have theirs, Warriors have theirs, etc, etc. You want to work this in with your rotation when the boss is under 20%, or if you've popped your Avenging Wrath. Avenging Wrath means that you can cast Hammer of the Wrath any time for the duration of Avenging Wrath. With Inquisition up plus Avenging Wrath, you can do some nice DPS. When popping cooldowns, if you spec the way I have, where you don't spec for the old Zealot Tree, Holy Avenger, you'll want to pop Guardian Ancient Kings, Avenging Wrath, and your Trinket, and your Potion, obviously, at the same time. If you were to spec for Holy Avenger, if you spec for your Holy Avenger, you want to pop Guardian first, keep that up for 10 seconds, and then pop your wings and then your Zealot Tree plus your Trinket. Why is this? Guardian Ancient Kings will do more damage for the long uptime it has. Towards the end of its duration, it will do the most damage, so you want to save 3 holy power points for just when Guardian Ancient Kings is about to fall off. That's when you'll do the most damage. Other main cooldowns that we can use Hand of Protection on ourselves, other raid members. This will prevent any melee damage, any physical damage, so fights where there's magical damage, you really aren't going to be using this at all. You've got the Sacred Shield if you spec for that. You won't be using Reckoning at any time whatsoever. And in Devotional, which is basically a free cast session for 6 seconds, and it also reduces damage by magical damage by 20%. Always nice. And then there's your personal cooldown, which is your Divine Protection, which you can glyph, so you can have 20% magic and 20% physical, or you can have the full 40% magical. And then there's your big defensive cooldown, which is Divine Shield, reduces all damage by 100% and reduces your damage by 50. Hope this was helpful to you guys. I'll talk to you later.